This is the last lecture from hematology section, and in this lecture we'll be talking about the plasma cell disorder. This lecture will cover competency PA 20.1 of pathology. Starting with definitions and the classification of plasma cell disorders. As you can see in the third row that we have a list of plasma cell disorders. So what is common to all these disorders is the presence of these two components. So for a disease to qualify as a plasma cell disorder, it has to have two things. One is there should be presence of abnormal proliferation of immunoglobulin producing cells, which are plasma cells, and there should be accumulation of monoclonal immunoglobulins in serum and in urine, which is called as M component. So these two features, they will be shared by all these 8 conditions that we will be discussing shortly. These disorders, they are also collectively called as plasma cell disorders or paraproteinemias or dysproteinemias and monoclonal gammopathies. So coming on to classification, these comprise of multiple myeloma, localized plasmacytoma, lymphoplasmacytic lymphoma, Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia, heavy chain disease, primary amyloidosis, monoclonal gammopathy of undetermined significance, which is shortly called as MGUS, and finally smoldering myeloma. Now amongst these conditions, multiple myeloma, smoldering myeloma and MGUS, they are a continuum, with MGUS being the earliest stage and multiple myeloma the last, and smoldering myeloma coming in between. So as we discussed in the definition of plasma cell disorders is that there should be abnormal proliferation of plasma cells, and we discussed that there should be presence of abnormal monoclonal proteins, which are also called as M component. So we will discuss in short about what is this M component. So M component is a monoclonal immunoglobulin which is identified in the blood of patients with plasma cell dyscrasias or disorders. So M stands for monoclonal and not IgM. Now excessive proliferation of plasma cells, it leads to raised immunoglobulins in plasma. Now these complete M components, they have a molecular weight of 16,000 kilodalton, and therefore these cannot be filtered by glomeruli. However, these neoplastic plasma cells, they often secrete excess of either light chains or heavy chains, and these excessive light chains, they can get filtered in glomeruli and they appear in urine as Bence-Jones proteins. Now these Bence-Jones proteins, they can be identified by their special physical properties and by protein electrophoresis. Now the most commonly secreted immunoglobulin by myeloma cells, or which will appear as M component, these are IgG 50% of the cases, followed by IgA in 25% of the cases, and rarely we can have IgD. 20% of the patients, they will have only light chains in serum and urine. So this is a little bit about M component, which is basically a monoclonal immunoglobulin which can be there either in the serum or urine or both, and M stands for monoclonal and not IgM. So as we discussed in the introductory slide that MGUS or monoclonal gammopathy of undetermined significance, smoldering myeloma and multiple myeloma, they are a continuum of one disease. So we will be discussing these 3 conditions together. So all of these 3 conditions, they occur in later age group, which is around 50 to 75 years. For a patient to qualify as MGUS, he or she should have serum monoclonal proteins, which can be either IgG, A or M, which will be elevated but not more than 3 gram per deciliter. So it has to be elevated but less than 3 gram per deciliter, and there should be presence of clonal bone marrow plasma cells which do not exceed beyond 10%. Also, these patients should not have any myeloma defining event, and all three are required for the diagnosis. Now, what is this myeloma defining event? We will discuss this in coming slides. So, this is the criteria for Magus. Then the next stage, or Magus, evolves on to become smoldering myeloma. So, this is an advanced stage as compared to Magus. Again, the age group is same, but here serum monoclonal proteins, again which can be IgG, A, they should be more than or equal to 3 gram per deciliter as compared to Magus, where it was elevated but it was less than 3 gram per deciliter. Now, either it can be alone or it can be associated with clonal bone marrow plasma cells, which are around 10 to 60%, which again were less than 10% in Magus, and there can be urinary monoclonal protein, which is equal to or more than 500 milligram per 24 hours. So for a patient to qualify as smoldering myeloma, either of these three conditions, if the patient needs any of these three criteria, he or she can be labeled as smoldering myeloma. Whereas in Magus, all the three conditions were required. Then the next stage is multiple myeloma. Again the same age group, but here we need clonal bone marrow plasma cells, which are equal to or more than 10%, or biopsy proven bony or extramedullary plasmacytoma, that is, there is collection of plasma cells which is either inside the bone, or when it is situated outside the bone, then it is called as extramedullary plasmacytoma. So either of these two, plus we need one or more of myeloma defining events. So again, either of first two, that is, either the patient has equal to or more than 10% plasma cells in bone marrow, or the patient has a biopsy proven bony or extramedullary plasmacytoma, plus the patient has at least one myeloma defining event. So if the person meets the criteria, then he or she can be labeled as multiple myeloma. So this we had discussed earlier also, that this is a continuum of the same disease and it progresses from Magus to smoldering myeloma to multiple myeloma. We have discussed the defining criteria for Magus, smoldering myeloma and multiple myeloma. Next few slides will be mainly limiting ourselves to multiple myeloma. So multiple myeloma is a plasma cell neoplasm which is characterized by multifocal involvement of the skeleton. So there is multifocal involvement, hence the term multiple myeloma. Epidemiology. It is responsible for around 1% of cancer deaths in Western world. In India, the incidence is 1.2 to 1.8 per 1 lakh. Approximately 50,000 new cases they are diagnosed each year. This is mainly a disease of elderly, and males are more commonly involved than females, and peak age of incidence is around 65 to 70 years. Etiopathogenesis. In etiology, there can be history of radiation exposure. Certain occupations like farmers, woodworkers, leather workers, they are more prone. Then karyotypic abnormalities that can be found in these patients are translocation 1114 and translocation 414, then deletion of 13q, 17p, translocations involving cyclin D, which has a good prognosis. Next is molecular pathogenesis of multiple myeloma. This has been observed that IgG genes in multiple myeloma, they always show somatic hypermutations. So it was postulated that the cell of origin in multiple myeloma is an antigen experienced post-germinal center B cell. Now this cell homes to bone marrow and differentiates there into a plasma cell. And this single plasma cell now proliferates, leading to a clonal population of plasma cells. Clonal meaning that it will have either kappa light chains or lambda light chains, hence the term monoclonal gammopathy. So these plasma cells will secrete a single type of immunoglobulin, which can be either IgG, IgA, IgD, and only one type of light chain will be there, which can be either kappa or lambda. Now the translocations and deletions that we just discussed, they lead to now dysregulation of cell cycle regulatory oncogenes such as cyclin D1, cyclin D3, fibroblast growth factor receptor 3 mutation, which leads to uncontrolled cell proliferation, overexpression of oncogenes like KRAS, NRAS and MYC, aberrant methylation of 5' gene promoter regions of tumor suppressor genes, and mutations of P53 and RB genes. So these translocations and deletions, what they do is they cause overexpression of oncogenes and they cause underexpression of tumor suppression genes. Also, they lead to dysregulation of cell cycle regulatory oncogenes. So all these combined together, they lead to uncontrolled cell proliferation, which result in large number of myeloma cells accumulating in bone marrow. So these plasma cells which are harboring these various defects, they interact with resident bone marrow stromal cells and they lead to two major effects. One is proliferation and survival of neoplastic cells, which are also called as myeloma cells, and there is bone destruction. So both these conditions, that is proliferation and survival of neoplastic cells and bone destruction, they are responsible for various biochemical and clinical alterations in patients with multiple myeloma. So these two features, these are achieved by expression of various cytokines by tumor cells and by tumor cell modulated stromal cells. So what are these various cytokines? These are, one is cell surface adhesion molecules. These are expressed by myeloma cells and they help them bind to bone marrow stromal cells and modify them for their own use, and then they express various cytokines which are again responsible for various effects of tumor cells, namely proliferation and survival of neoplastic cells and bone destruction. So after hijacking these bone marrow stromal cells to their advantage, what happens is there is proliferation and survival of neoplastic cells, which is done by interleukin 6 transforming growth factor beta, tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin 1, lymphotoxin, macrophage inhibitory protein 1 alpha and VEGF. So all these are now secreted by these stromal cells. And secondly, there is bone destruction, which is modulated by secretion of interleukin 1, tumor necrosis factor, receptor activator of nuclear factor kappa B ligand or RANKL, and macrophage inhibitory protein 1 alpha. So all these cytokines, these are secreted by bone marrow stromal cells, and these bone marrow stromal cells are made to secrete these cytokines by myeloma cells, which express cell surface adhesion molecules, and they modulate or modify these stromal cells, and these stromal cells start secreting these various cytokines, which are then responsible for these two key factors of multiple myeloma, which is proliferation of these neoplastic myeloma cells and bone destruction. This diagram represents the various changes that occur in pathogenesis of multiple myeloma, mainly the interaction between the myeloma cells and the resident bone marrow stromal cells. So on the left we have a myeloma cell with its eccentric nucleus and blue cytoplasm, and on the right we have this fibroblast-like cell which is a bone marrow stromal cell. So these altered myeloma cells, they start expressing adhesion molecules, and with them they modify the bone marrow stromal cells to their advantage. Because of that, there is adhesion mediated signaling, which leads to production of various cytokines and cytokine mediated signaling. Now again, interleukin 1, lymphotoxin, macrophage inhibitory factor 1, RANK ligand and tumor necrosis factor alpha, all these will result in osteoclast activating factor and bone destruction, which was the one of the key factors, and the second was proliferation and survival of tumor cells, which is mediated by secretion of interleukin-6 by these stromal cells, and this leads to activation of cell cycle pathway proteins like cyclin D and P21. This diagram depicts the mechanism of bone destruction in multiple myeloma. At the top we have a stromal cell. So normally this stromal cell, it has on its surface rank ligand. This rank ligand interacts with rank receptor of osteoclast, and it leads to maturation of these osteoclasts into osteoclast precursors into mature osteoclasts, which then resorb the bone. Secondly, rank ligand, it has its decoy protein also, which is called as osteoprotegerin, which blocks the interaction between rank ligand and rank. So normally there is balance or a fine balance between rank ligand receptor and osteoprotegerin. What happens in multiple myeloma, that there is overexpression of rank ligand, which now binds with rank receptor, and this activates transcription factor, nuclear factor kappa B, and this leads to differentiation of osteoclasts. So these osteoclasts, much larger number of these osteoclasts, they mature and they lead to bone resorption, which is responsible for lytic lesions in multiple myeloma. So this was all about the pathogenesis of multiple myeloma. We discussed that there can be various genetic mutations which can lead to two main factors, which is proliferation of myeloma cells and bone destruction in these patients. So coming on to morphology. Lesions of multiple myeloma, they are broadly divided into osseous or bone marrow lesions and extra-osseous lesions. So in osseous lesions, it forms the B of crab. We will discuss what this crab means later. So most commonly affected bones, they are the vertebral column, ribs, skull, pelvis, femur, clavicle and scapula. Lesions, they begin in medullary cavity. They erode the cortex and produce pathological fractures. On radiologic appearance, they can be either punched out defects or presence of pathological fractures in advanced disease. At times, they can be generalized osteopenia. On gross appearance, these areas of bone destruction, they have a soft red gelatinous appearance because of presence of a tumor mass in the area of osteolytic lesion. This slide shows the various bones which are commonly affected by multiple myeloma on the left, which are skull bones, ribs, spine, pelvis, upper limb bones which are rarely involved, and again lower limb bones, they are also rarely involved. And on the right side we have an X-ray skull, and we can see these radiolucent punched out lesions. So these are the osteolytic lesions of multiple myeloma. Coming on to bone marrow appearance in multiple myeloma. On microscopically, we will talk about the cellularity, then we talk about the various series, which is erythroid series, myeloid series and megakaryocytes, and then presence of any abnormal cells. So if we talk about cellularity, the marrow will be hypercellular. Erythroid series, it will be depressed. Myeloid series will be depressed. Megakaryocytes, they are either depressed or normal. And the characteristic finding will be presence of myeloma cells, which can be either 10% or more than 10%. What I want to highlight here is that myeloma cells, they are different from myeloid cells. Myeloid cells are the cells which are precursors of neutrophils or granulocytes like promyelocytes, myelocyte and metamyelocyte. So myeloid series and myeloma cells, they are different. Myeloid series I have just enumerated at least a few of those cells, and myeloma cells are plasma cells which are now neoplastic. Now what do these myeloma cells, they look like? Their appearance is variable. They may resemble their normal counterpart, which is a mature plasma cell, or they can be undifferentiated. Their cytoplasm, it is deep blue due to large amount of ribosomes, and there is a perinuclear half or clearing which is due to presence of Golgi apparatus. Nucleus will be eccentrically placed, that is, it will be placed towards one side, and binucleate forms, they are also frequently identified, and normal cartwheel appearance of plasma cell nucleus, it is not observed. Immature cells, that is plasmablasts, they can also be identified. These cells, they have opened up chromatin. Their nucleus is centrally placed as compared to eccentric nucleus of other mature myeloma cells, and they have a prominent nucleolus. Now this is the typical appearance of a myeloma cell, but we can also find variants of myeloma cells, and these variants are usually due to accumulation of immunoglobulins in their cytoplasm or nucleus. So the variants are flame cells, which have a fiery red cytoplasmic border. Then there can be Mott cells, which have multiple grape-like clear cytoplasmic inclusions or droplets. Then there can be Russell bodies, which are cytoplasmic pink hyaline globules, and Dutcher bodies, which are nuclear immunoglobulin inclusions. This slide shows a line diagram of myeloma cells in bone marrow on the left side, and a photomicrograph of myeloma cell in bone marrow aspirate on the right side. So on the left side we can see these egg-like cells which have eccentric nucleus, and many binucleate forms we can also identify. We can see this deep blue colored cytoplasm, which is due to presence of large amounts of ribosomes, and we can see an eccentric nucleus. On the right side also, again we can appreciate these myeloma cells which have these eccentric nuclei and this deep blue colored cytoplasm. We can also identify some of these myeloid cells, the precursors as well as mature forms, and these are basically the resident normal population of bone marrow. Again, these should not be confused with myeloma cells. Myeloma cells are either mature or immature neoplastic plasma cells. On this slide, we have various variants of myeloma cells. In the top left, we have Mott cell. We can see these myeloma cells. In the center, pointed with an arrow, we can see a binucleate form which has multiple clear cytoplasmic vacuoles, and hence this is a classical appearance of a Mott cell. Then next we have a flame cell where we can see a red fiery cell border. Then in the right upper corner we can see plasma blasts. These plasma blasts, just like any other blast, they have prominent nucleoli. Then in the left lower corner we can see again marked by a black arrow, we have a cell which has these pink hyaline secretions in the cytoplasm, which are Russell bodies. These are inclusions of immunoglobulin. And finally, in the right lower corner, we can see again myeloma cells. Some of them, they have these intranuclear inclusions, which are, some of these cells, they have been marked with black arrows as well. And these intranuclear inclusions, they are called as Dutcher bodies. So these are the various forms of myeloma cells. So we have discussed the osseous lesions of multiple myeloma, where we see clinically these osteolytic lesions or punched out lesions on X-ray, and on microscopy we can see large number of myeloma cells as well as their variant forms on bone marrow aspiration. Now coming on to extraosseous lesions. First is blood. High immunoglobulins in plasma, they lead to elevated erythrocyte sedimentation rate, which leads to rouleaux formation on peripheral smear. Now these rouleaux, they appear as a stack of coins on peripheral smear. Then RBCs, they have a normocytic, normochromic appearance, and usually there is some degree of anemia, and this anemia constitutes the A of Crabbe. Plasma cells, They normally do not appear in peripheral circulation. When we talk about multiple myeloma, usually we are talking about plasma cell appearance or their increased numbers in bone marrow only. If plasma cells they start appearing in peripheral circulation, or we can identify them on peripheral smear, which happens usually late in the course of multiple myeloma, then if these plasma cells they are equal to or more than 20% in differential count, then we label the patient as plasma cell leukemia. Then myeloma kidney. Glomeruli, they are generally preserved in multiple myeloma. Renal lesions or renal biochemical alterations in multiple myeloma, they form the R of Crabbe in multiple myeloma. Tubular lesions in multiple myeloma, they are common, but glomeruli, they are generally spared. These tubular lesions, they result from precipitation of Bence-Jones proteins, which are light chains in tubules, and they can also lead to cast formation, and at times giant cell reaction to these, they can also be observed. Then there can be systemic amyloidosis of AL type, and this can be observed in around 10% of patients with multiple myeloma. Then there can be myeloma neuropathy due to nerve infiltration or pathological fractures of vertebrae, and rarely there can be liver and spleen involvement. This slide shows various features of or extraosseous lesions of multiple myeloma. In the left upper corner, we have a peripheral smear, and we have these arrows which are pointing at these rouleau formation, which is RBC appearance like a stack of coins, and this occurs due to high load of immunoglobulins in blood, which leads to increased plasma viscosity and elevated ESR. Then in the right upper corner, we have myeloma kidney, where we can see inside the tubules these pink hyaline secretions, which are immunoglobulin casts, and in the lower central picture we can see a large giant cell, which is a response or a foreign body kind of response to immunoglobulins. Coming on to clinical features of multiple myeloma, these are due to either infiltration of bones and other organs by neoplastic myeloma cells, or because of immunoglobulin synthesis, and thirdly due to suppression of normal humoral immunity, as these neoplastic myeloma cells or plasma cells, they take over the normal bone marrow. So first is bone pain. This is the most common feature. Most commonly involved sites are back and ribs. Due to bone infiltration by tumor cells and because of osteoclastic proliferation, there is bone pain. Then there can be renal failure. This is due to hypercalcemia because of again osteolytic lesions and the release of calcium in bone in the circulation. Then glomerular deposits of amyloid, hyperuricemia, and infiltration of kidney by myeloma cells. All these they can contribute towards renal failure in patients with multiple myeloma. Then there are hematological complications. In hematological complications, we have anemia. This is due to bone marrow replacement by myeloma cells. As we had discussed in bone marrow findings of myeloma, that there is depression of erythroid series in multiple myeloma. So because of that, there is fall in erythroid precursors, which results in anemia. Other contributing factors are decreased production of erythropoietin and inhibition of erythropoiesis by interleukin-6, which was being secreted by bone marrow stromal cells, which were modulated by myeloma cells. Then there can be bleeding tendencies. This occurs because of interaction of clotting factors with M component and also due to thrombocytopenia to some extent. Again, we had discussed that at times megakaryocytes, they can be depressed in multiple myeloma, and that can lead to thrombocytopenia. However, the main cause is believed to be the interaction of clotting factors with M component. Then finally, there can be hyperviscosity syndrome, and this is due to hyperglobulinemia. then we can observe certain biochemical abnormalities like hypercalcemia. This is due to bone destruction, and this forms hypercalcemia. The C of hypercalcemia, it constitutes C of crab. Then there can be hyperuricemia due to necrosis of large number of tumor cells and also due to renal failure. And then there can be increased beta-2 microglobulins, which can be observed in urine and serum. So all these biochemical abnormalities, they can be found in multiple myeloma. And then there can be susceptibility to infections. This is the second most common feature in multiple myeloma. This is due to bacterial infections which occur due to hypogammaglobulinemia and neutrophil dysfunction. Next, we will discuss the lab investigations of a suspected case of multiple myeloma. But before that, we will discuss WHO criteria for diagnosis of multiple myeloma. Why this is important? Because if you know the WHO criteria for diagnosis of multiple myeloma, then we will know which kind of investigations to order so as to either refute or confirm a diagnosis of multiple myeloma. So as you would recall from previous slides, that to make a diagnosis of multiple myeloma, we need clonal bone marrow plasma cells which have to be either more than 10% or at least 10%, or there should be a bony or extramedullary plasmacytoma, plus we need at least one of the myeloma defining events. So these myeloma defining events we had not discussed earlier. We will discuss them now. What constitutes a myeloma defining event? These are collectively called or remembered by this acronym CRAB-SLIM, where C stands for calcium, R stands for renal, A stands for anemia, B stands for bone lesions, S stands for 60%, Li stands for light chain ratio, and M stands for MRI lesion. So just to elaborate a little bit on these, see their serum calcium levels, they are more than 11 milligram per deciliter, or they are more than 2 milligram per deciliter than the upper limit of normal. Then in R, we require renal insufficiency, which is confirmed by serum creatinine levels which are more than 2 milligram per deciliter. A, we need anemia with hemoglobin less than 10 gram per deciliter. For B, we need one or more osteolytic lesions on X-ray or CT or PET-CT. For S, we need clonal bone marrow plasma cells which are either equal to or more than 60%. For Li, we need abnormal serum free light chain ratio, that is the ratio between kappa and lambda chains. And for M, we need one or more focal lesions which measure more than 5 millimeter on MRI. So, to make a diagnosis of multiple myeloma, we need either clonal bone marrow plasma cells which should be equal to or more than 10%, or bone marrow or extramedullary plasmacytoma, either of these two, plus one of these myeloma defining events. So one or more can be there, but we require at least one of the myeloma defining events plus either of the above two things, which is clonal bone marrow plasma cells which are more than 10% or equal to 10%, or presence of a bony or extramedullary plasmacytoma. So these are the WHO criteria for diagnosis of multiple myeloma. So when we try to investigate a patient with multiple myeloma, we will order those investigations by which we can confirm whether any of all these conditions, that these myeloma events or presence of these bony or extramedullary plasmacytoma or clonal bone marrow plasma cells, whether they are present or they are not. So we can finally make a diagnosis of multiple myeloma. So we will start with workup of a suspected case of multiple myeloma. We have just discussed the WHO criteria of multiple myeloma, and when we have received all these lab investigations and we see that there is some abnormality but the patient does not fit in criteria of multiple myeloma, then we would also like to rule out other plasma cell disorders also, provided that there is abnormal proliferation of plasma cells, that is their number is increased, and also there is presence of monoclonal protein. So we will start with first confirmation of an elevated immunoglobulin, whether at all there is presence of raised immunoglobulin in a patient with the characteristic setting, which we have just discussed the various clinical features of multiple myeloma. So if you have suspected a patient clinically to have multiple myeloma, so we'll start with first confirmation of elevation of immunoglobulins. If they are elevated, then we confirm whether this elevation is polyclonal or monoclonal. If it is monoclonal, then we go for confirmation whether it is IgM or non-IgM. Why we want to confirm whether it is IgM or non-IgM is, we can see in the second row, we can see that some of the conditions like multiple myeloma, localized plasmacytoma, then smoldering myeloma, then Magus, they have IgG elevation, whereas some conditions like lymphoplasmacytic lymphoma and Waldenstrom macroglobulinemia, primary amyloidosis, they have IgM elevation, and some of the conditions they can have either IgG elevation or IgM elevation. So we will try to rule out which condition can be present and which is unlikely to be a diagnosis. So after confirmation whether it is this monoclonal gammopathy is of IgM type or of non-IgM type, we then try to confirm myeloma defining events which we had just discussed, which is Crabbe-Slim, and after that we try to do some prognostic tests so as to be able to predict the prognosis in a given case. So this slide is again recapitulation of what we have just discussed. What is the scheme of events or investigations that you would order in a suspected case of multiple myeloma? So first you would try to establish whether at all there is elevation of immunoglobulin. If it is yes, then okay. If it is no, then we look for other diagnosis. If it is there, then we proceed with establishment of whether it is monoclonal gammopathy or polyclonal. If it is polyclonal, then it is unlikely to be a plasma cell disorder. Then we look for other causes of immunoglobulin elevation. But if it is monoclonal, then we proceed with differentiation between whether it is of IgM type or of non-IgM type. If it is IgM, then we investigate for lymphoplasmacytic lymphoma, Magus, and primary amyloidosis. But if it is of non-IgM type, for example, there is elevation of IgA or IgG or rarely IgD, then we evaluate for Magus, smoldering myeloma and multiple myeloma. So criteria for these, they are well defined by WHO. So if the patient falls in the criteria of Magus or smoldering myeloma, then we do nothing further. We just follow up the patient. Whereas if the patient has multiple myeloma, then we start the treatment and also we do prognostic tests. So this is the general scheme of evaluation of a patient with suspected multiple myeloma. So we start with the first step, which is confirmation of elevated immunoglobulin. This is achieved by a test called as serum protein electrophoresis. The principle of this test is that the current is applied across a strip of agarose gel which is coated with a drop of patient sample, and depending upon the weight of plasma proteins, they get separated in various areas. So in these diagrams, as we can see, there are different regions where we have albumin, alpha 1, alpha 2, beta and gamma regions. So in a normal serum pattern, what happens is that the sample is applied at the starting point of gamma region, and albumin, as it is a low molecular weight protein, it travels the farthest, and in between we have alpha and beta regions. So in a patient with benign polyclonal gammopathy, we see a wide hump in gamma region, whereas if the patient has a monoclonal gammopathy, then we see a monoclonal band or M band in gamma region. Then after we have established that there is indeed elevation of immunoglobulins, then we proceed on with the second step, which is confirmation of monoclonality. This can be done on serum protein electrophoresis also, and also it can be confirmed on immunofixation. So as we have discussed earlier also, that monoclonal immunoglobulins, they will give a well-defined tall peak in gamma region, which is called as M band, where M stands for monoclonal. And if there is elevated immunoglobulins but they are polyclonal in nature, then it will give a wide hump in gamma region. This slide shows how a normal or an abnormal serum protein electrophoresis slide looks like. On the left we have these two strips. A is from a normal person, where we can see these different regions, and in gamma we have just a faint band, whereas in patient with monoclonal immunoglobulins we can see that there is a thick, well-defined, dense band is there in gamma region. So this band corresponds to the monoclonal component or M spike. On the right side of this diagram there is this histogram which represents this M protein. So normally when we apply this sample from these patients with immunoglobulins or a normal patient, then what we are seeing on the left side of this slide, this is how a normal or abnormal serum protein electrophoresis looks like. And on the right side we have a diagrammatic representation or a histogram of this same slide of serum protein electrophoresis. This slide shows how immunofixation test looks like. Although we can get some idea from serum protein electrophoresis whether the immunoglobulin is monoclonal in nature or polyclonal in nature, but it can still further be confirmed by immunofixation. So in this slide we can see that there is on the extreme left of this slide we have a thick, well-defined band in gamma region. Then we have two lines where we have this G and A. So in A we have no band and in G we have a band. So it means the immunoglobulin is of IgG type. And then again next we have M. Again M is also not there. So the type of immunoglobulin that is there is of IgG type. Then we further want to see which to establish the monoclonality of this IgG. So we have antibodies against kappa light chains and lambda light chains. So we can see that we have a band only in kappa region. So that means this elevated immunoglobulin, it is of monoclonal type. Next step is confirmation of IgM versus non-IgM. As we have discussed earlier, that it is in our interest to identify whether it is of IgM type elevation of immunoglobulin or non-IgM type, because there are certain conditions which will have elevation of IgM, whereas other conditions will have elevation of non-IgM. So this will help us in narrowing down our diagnosis. So this can be achieved by nephelometry and by immunofixation. We have discussed in our previous slide that immunofixation can also help us in identifying which type of immunoglobulin is elevated. So if we have identified that this is the immunoglobulin, they are raised, they are of monoclonal type and they are of non-IgM type, then we proceed on with tests to confirm myeloma defining events. So here we will do first bone marrow examination by aspiration to see plasma cell percentage. The features that we will find in bone marrow aspirations of patients with multiple myeloma, this we have already covered, so I will not repeat it again. Then next we will do serum calcium levels, and then we will do renal function for estimation of creatinine level, anemia for evaluate evaluating the patient for anemia, we proceed with complete blood count. And finally, we look for bone lesions. So we do skeletal survey with X-ray or CT. So this will complete our FAB of myeloma defining events. Then we also proceed with prognostic and additional tests like serum albumin, serum beta-2 microglobulin, LDH, karyotyping in fish for chromosomal abnormalities, serum uric acid, ESR, urine for Bence-Jones proteins, and serum free light chain assay and ratio. So all these will complete our WHO criteria. Many of these tests will be required to assess for WHO criteria of multiple myeloma, whereas others will be required for prognostication. So with this we have covered multiple myeloma. Next entity is localized plasmacytoma. So these are characterized by neoplastic proliferation of plasma cells without marrow plasmacytosis. That is, when we do bone marrow aspiration in these patients, we will not find elevated plasma cells, and there will be absence of myeloma defining events, which we have just discussed, which are Crab's limb. So there will be absence of myeloma defining events, and there will be no plasmacytosis in bone marrow. And 1/3 of these patients, they can have elevated M component. So these localized plasmacytomas, they are further divided into either solitary bone plasmacytoma or they can be extramedullary plasmacytoma, where they are situated outside the medullary cavity in the soft tissue. So solitary bone plasmacytoma, they produce a single lytic lesion with unifocal involvement and no marrow plasmacytosis will be there. So this is different from multiple myeloma in a way that there will be no marrow plasmacytosis. Plasma cells will not be increased when we do bone marrow aspiration from posterior superior iliac spine, and the lytic lesion will be of unifocal nature, unlike multiple myeloma where we see multiple lytic lesions. Then other type is extramedullary plasmacytomas. These occur most commonly in submucosal lymphoid tissue of nasopharynx or paranasal sinuses. Again, they will have no marrow plasmacytosis and absence of myeloma defining events. Both these subtypes of localized plasmacytoma, that is solitary bone plasmacytoma and extramedullary plasmacytoma, they have better prognosis than conventional multiple myeloma, and treatment is excision of the lesion. Next entity is lymphoplasmacytic lymphoma or Waldenstrom macroglobulinemia. So as the name suggests, macroglobulinemia, so it is associated with elevation of IgM. So this lymphoplasmacytic lymphoma, it is an uncommon disorder with hybrid features between multiple myeloma and SLL. There is proliferation of monoclonal B lymphocytes which can also have plasmacytoid morphology. Waldenstrom macroglobulinemia is lymphoplasmacytic lymphoma which is associated with elevation of IgM. As M is a macroglobulin, hence the term used is Waldenstrom macroglobulinemia. Site of involvement is bone marrow. There is proliferation of plasma cells, lymphocytes and plasmacytoid lymphocytes. Differences from multiple myeloma are that there is more common lymph node, spleen and liver involvement in lymphoplasmacytic lymphoma. There are no extensive bone lesions and there is absence of hypercalcemia. Clinical features: there is presence of hyperviscosity syndrome because of elevated IgM. There can be moderate organomegaly and there can be bleeding tendencies. And then we have heavy chain disease. This is a rare disorder with secretion of only heavy chains. So with this we have covered various plasma cell disorders. Just to recapitulate, these are a group of disorders which are associated with abnormal proliferation of plasma cells and presence of M component in serum. Now this M component is either of IgM type or non-IgM type. This is important to differentiate between these two types because it helps us to narrow down the diagnosis. And if we try to work up these patients, then we first have to proceed in a systematic way. First we have to look for whether at all there is elevation of serum immunoglobulin. Then we try to identify whether they are polyclonal in nature or monoclonal in nature. Then we try to look for whether they are IgG type or IgM type. And if they are of non-IgM type, then we proceed with myeloma defining events, for which we have an acronym called as CRAB-SLIM. So all those tests we will have to do for evaluation of a patient with multiple myeloma. And in addition to that, we will need to do certain prognostic tests so as to be able to predict the outcome in these patients. Then we also discussed about smoldering myeloma and MGUS, which are earlier or predecessor lesions of multiple myeloma. Then there is a solitary plasmacytoma, which has a better prognosis as compared to multiple myeloma, and other conditions like lymphoplasmacytic lymphoma or Waldenstrom macroglobulinemia, which are associated with elevation of IgM type immunoglobulin. So this is your assignment for this lecture. You can submit your written assignments to your respective teachers.